Hello, welcome to my video. So I've been interested in AR-15 pistols for a bit, and I wanted to make a kind of a retro A2 sort of a pistol with a front sight base. And I went looking for pistol length round A2 handguards, and nobody makes any. A couple places make like free float handguards, and they were really expensive and not kind of a look that I wanted. So I decided I was just going to make my own. I had an idea. I thought I'd give it a whirl. I think it actually turned out pretty good. So here's kind of the end product as soon as I was finally finished with it. Now you'll notice that it's not quite at the pistol length, and that's because I decided my eyes are bad and I wanted my front sight base here to go way out towards the barrel. So I actually decided to make mine like a dissipator style with a hidden low profile gas block under the handguards and then just the front sight base pushed way out towards the end. But it can work for any length, I think. And in particular, I think it might work for mid-length A1 handguards, the triangle handguards. I don't know of anybody that's making mid-length A1 handguards right now. So I bet this method could be applied to make your own. But anyway, here's how I did it. Start with a scrap pair of A2 handguards. I'm using a pair that have been painted over and over again. They're kind of junk. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the front end, but not so, only short enough to the first rib. I want this part right here. So I'm going to cut that off. And then I'm going to go to the back, and I'm going to cut it down so that it saves a section of exactly how long I want it. And the goal then is to take that cut off front end and to tuck it into the cut down back end and then glue it together. So you've got the front end with the little nubs that will fit into the handguard cap. This piece right here, that's the piece that's the throwaway. So we're cutting a section of the middle out and then gluing the front end nestled inside the back end so that it all sits as one piece and will fit in the handguard delta ring and the front handguard retaining cap. So once I cut it down, I'm kind of checking my length here. Here's how it was set up. So as you can see, I've got my low profile gas block there, and I've got my actual front sight that's not being functional as a gas block, but just the front sight on the front. Now, I wanted it as close to the muzzle as I could, so I had to cut off the bayonet lug right here so that it wouldn't interfere with the flash hider when I put that on. And then I drilled and tapped the hole pins for some set screws, and maybe I'll make another video about how I did that, but it wasn't hard. But if you wanted to do like just at the normal pistol location, it wouldn't be that bad. Your gas block would then sit like right here, and then you'd have, you know, your handguards would only be then this long, and so you just cut it back to however far that you need it. As you can see here, my handguard cap was right there, and my first cut was a little on the long side. I decided to cut it back a little bit shorter, but actually went too short, and you'll see that as the project continues. So be mindful of the cuts. What is it? Measure twice, cut once, something like that. So anyway, here's the front half, the little front stub nestled inside the back stub. And the reason this works is because the handguards are actually tapered. They get narrower towards the front end. So the front diameter is smaller than the back diameter. And the shorter you make it, kind of the more space you've got to nestle the one inside the other. But that's basically the idea. Now, as you can see here, they don't exactly fit. The front stub sits a little too high. Here's the hemisphere half ends for the outer shell, and then here's the where it ends for the inner shell. You can see that it needs to be relieved a little bit. So what I need to do is I need to go in here primarily and just round off the front end. It's got that square, the kind of top to it where the vent holes are, and maybe I'll relieve a little bit of this in here so that it fits a little snugger in there, and the seams and the hemisphere halves all line up. But the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to sand flat. I wanted to square up the front end. So I just placed the handguards in a spare barrel nut to hold them in the right position, and then I just, you know, rubbed them back and forth and made sure that they had a nice square flat edge to the front. And then I'm testing it again here, and I'm like, well, that's okay, that's pretty square. Moving on. Here's a test fit of the front halves just to make sure everything fits inside the handguard cap nice and neat. Then what I did was this. As you can see, I sanded down this quite dramatically and sanded the inside here as well. And then I cut these little kind of channels with a file in there. That's for the JB weld to have some place to flow and to grab and to kind of find some material to adhere to when I glue these things together. It's going to have a pretty good gap in there, and I need to fill that gap with JB Weld. Then I had an idea. I was like, how am I going to keep all these pieces in place while I glue them together? Like, it's got to line up really exactly. And I thought, well, wait a second. I took a round handguard cap and set it inside the front stubs. And I used a little screw here that goes through. And that holds the inside in place. And then I made it up with a triangle hand cap on the outside, and then put a little screw there on that stud and lock it down nice and tight. That holds everything. That holds everything in place. And then I got this little screw here that I can hold on to, and I can kind of move it around and place it wherever I want it, just like this. So I can move this in and out now to get my right length, and I can spin it around so that the hemisphere seam on that side exactly lines up with the hemisphere seam on the inside. So you want to make sure that those two pieces are lined up and in place. So then, oh yeah, you can see here that I really rounded down the inside handguard, removed that square edge and sanded this down a little bit. But I've got some pretty big gaps here I'm going to wind up filling with the JB Weld. But I'm going to use JB Quick just to kind of set them in place first. So here I mixed up the JB Quick and applied it with a toothpick. That kind of rhymed. And just here on the little top end, just to kind of hold it in place. Got it in the right spot, exactly where I wanted it. Then I let it sit. It cured up pretty fast. And then I can go at it with the regular JB Weld. Here it is with the JB Quick. And you can see my little dab there and my little dab there. Here's a test fit with the JB Quick, just to make sure that everything is in the right place before I permanently put it together. If it wasn't in the right spot, the JB Quick I think was non-permanent enough that I could pry it loose or cut it loose and kind of fix it. But it worked out okay. Now here I am putting on the actual regular JB Weld. And as you can see here, it took a pretty big bead to fill that gap. I cut the outer handguard back a little bit too short, so I had to fill it in there in the seam. And trying to make a nice bead here so it sits in there smoothly. Here's the shot on the inside. I'm filling in the gaps and all the little empty voids and so forth like that to get a nice solid joint there. Now here it is after it's dried and cured. You can see that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get the heat shield to actually go back in there. You want to save the little tab spacings here on the front and on the back end over here so that the heat shield can fit in, but I wasn't sure the heat shield would fit in, so I cut up some of that middle handguard piece and was going to use it as a spacer and maybe glue the heat shield in directly, but as it turned out I didn't need to do that. Okay, so then here's the heat shield, and these are the little tabs, as you know, that hold it in place. So cut it back wherever you need it. I think I cut mine about right there, but if your length is going to be different, you'll cut it back to where you need it to be. The front end is a little narrower, so I would say justify it on the front end and cut it back as far as you need. Like maybe if you only need it right here, you can bend these little corners right there out to maybe sit in the rear handguard tabs, but I wanted the holes to line up too. So anyway, speaking of the little tabs, this is the back end of the handguard. Here's where the barrel nut would sit. This is the little tab that'll take the heat shield. So make sure that that's free and clear. It's not too bad on the back end, but on the front end, I got some JB Weld in there. I had to open that back up there with a hacksaw blade. But anyway, I want to keep that place free of adhesive. And after much bending and frustrating and so forth, I was able to get the heat shield in place. So it's held in place by that tab right there, and then in the back by that tab there and there, and the holes generally line up pretty well. So I was pretty pleased with that. Okay, so here's then some final shots. I took some black spray paint and kind of masked off the front end and sprayed the front end here black so it's not quite so JB Weldy gray. And it looks pretty good at a distance. Up close, you can kind of tell that there's something strange going on there, but it looks and functions really pretty good. Here's a shot of the inside, looking down from the top. Again, you can see there's the inside piece nestled inside the outside piece, and it all fits nice and neat under the handguard. I did have to push the heat shield in a bit here on the top part to clear the gas block there, but if you're just using a regular pistol length and you're only going this far with your handguards, it shouldn't be a big deal. Okay, there's a shot of the inside. And then there's kind of a close-up of what the final joint looks like with the JB weld. And when I put it together, I thought, that's really cute. That looks like just like a little AR for a little kid. So, hey, think of the children, they said. Hey, so I made the children a rifle too. And I'm only partly kidding because I agree with the founding father, Richard Henry Lee, who said a militia, when properly formed, are in fact the people themselves and include all men capable of bearing arms. So if you're a combat-age American male, you're part of the militia. Welcome. And to preserve liberty, it's essential that the whole body of the people, that's everybody, always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them. So you may not start your 5-year-old off with this. Maybe start your 5-year-old off with a Nerf gun and then graduate to a BB gun and eventually maybe a semi-automatic rifle. But anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been educational. And keep the faith and keep your powder dry. Bye-bye.